Hi. Hi. How's everybody? I'm starting right off with a sip of tea. Nice to have you here. Sorry, I'm a few minutes late. I just got the plumber in the building. I think tourists thought we were lying to them this weekend, but really is broken. So that's good. The plumber's here. He's gonna get that going for us. Let's see. I'm trying to get this right. Trying to make sure you can hear me. I might come a little smidge closer. Sorry. Okay. Tuesday, June 16th is Bloomsday. And that is a day that around the world, people read James Joyce, Ulysses, character in James Joyce's novel Ulysses here, and how he goes about his day. Oh, my computer just said I'm not connected. You know what? I'm not going to fool around with that today. I'm going to go upstairs. If you can hear me, just take a little tour through the library with me. Oh, there I am. I'm connected again. Okay, so I'm on the move because my internet connection isn't good there. So here's a little live. Gonna go upstairs while I'm live here. I didn't want to be upstairs because, as I was just explaining before, that the plumber was in the building and next in the building. And so I wasn't going to work up here, but I will. And if he comes in while I'm reading, he comes in while I'm reading. I suppose he'll think I'm talking to him, but I won't be. I'll be reading to all of you. Okay, let me get a light on.
Hi.
Hi. I'm on live. You're fine. I just said I couldn't get connection downstairs. See, here he is now. So he's going to come in and out, but that's fine. And I'm going to start. Okay. Okay. So hopefully the connection will be good here. Sometimes it's funky in that other room, although it's been funky up here too. So, okay, let's try again. Hi. Welcome to Frankenstein Tea. My tea is yummy. I wasn't sure I was going to be. It was a little bit of a cheater tea. I had half a tea left, added more to it, blah, blah, blah. I see that my dad was on there. I don't know if he got back. I don't know if I lost anybody there with that internet connection glitz. But here I am for Bloomsday. So Tuesday, July 16th. Day in Dublin, and all these pages are about him walking around Dublin, and it's a famous work, it's a celebration, it's worldwide. We're doing a large virtual celebration of Bloomsday this year. Traditionally, we celebrate Bloomsday in this library, and we invite people to come in and read their favorite section or read another section of James Joyce that they enjoy. And we sit around and we have refreshments and we listen to each other read. And this year we did that, but we filmed everybody. So you can find those recordings of people reading James Joyce and Leopold Bloom Adventures and Ulysses on this same channel that you're at. Look for the Bloomsday playlist and you can listen to that. And Susanna did a great job, my coworker. She has voices from all over the world, actually. And I'm going to tell you, my friend, as you leave, that you should listen because your friend, Matt Fraser, did a bunch for us.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
He sent us a bunch of recordings, and he's great on there. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole online presence is great.
Yeah. So what am I going to do? So last year was the first day I ever read for Bloomsday. I got so caught up in it. I got so caught up in the listening and the writing, and I just wanted to read something. I wanted to participate. Now, I have been doing Bloomsday, facilitating a Bloomsday happening in this library for a number of years. Have never been so moved to do something, and I was last year. And so now this year, I kind of feel obligated since I have on-air time, and it's Bloomsday. So I'm going to try. This is. If you know Ulysses or celebrate Bloomsday or have ever witnessed celebrating Bloomsday, this is a little bit of a feat here. It's not. I don't know. I don't want to make. I don't want to make disparaging judgments about the writing and stuff, but it's interesting how it's not exactly. Maybe you pick it up and read it. I'm not sure what's going to happen. But I'll tell you what my plan is. So Bloomsday, this is Leopold Bloom. He goes out into Dublin and spends the day. And it's by time frame. So here's 2 p.m. It's not 3 p.m., but I couldn't resist it when Susanna and I found it today because at 2 p.m. he's in the library. So here we go. Bloomsday celebration. Page 269 from James Joyce's Ulysses. This version. Page numbers will not mean much. 2 p.m. The Quaker librarian, quaking, tiptoed in. "What is that, Mr. Dedalus?" the Quaker librarian asked. Urbane to comfort them, the Quaker librarian purred. "And we have we not, those priceless pages of Wilhelm Meister, a great poet on a great brother poet, a hesitating soul taking arms against a sea of troubles, torn by conflicting doubts, as one sees in real life. He came a step, a syncopace forward on Neat's leather creaking, and a step backward, a syncopace on the solemn floor. A noiseless attendant, setting upon the door, but slightly, made him a noiseless beck. Directly, said he, creaking to go, albeit lingering, the beautiful, ineffectual dreamer who comes to grief against hard facts. One always feels that Goethe's judgments are so true, true in the larger analysis. Twice creakingly analysis, he coronated off. Bald, most zealous by the door, he gave his large ear all to the attendant's words, heard them, and was gone. Two left. Monsieur de la Palisse, Stephen sneered, was alive 15 minutes before his death. Have you found those 6 brave medicals? John Eggleton asked with elder's gall, to write Paradise Lost at your dictation, the sorrows of Satan, he calls it. Smile, smile, Cranley, smile. First he tickled her, then he patted her, then he passed the female cat better. For he was a medical, jolly old I feel you would need one more for Hamlet. 7 is dear to the mystic. The shining 7, WB calls them. Glitter-eyed, his rufous skull close to his green-capped desk lamp, sought the face, bearded amid dark greener shadow, an olive, holly-eyed. He laughed low, a sizar's laugh of Trinity, unanswered. Orchestral Satan, weeping many a rude, tears such as angels weep, ed egli ave del cal fruto trambata. He holds my follies hostage. Cranley's 11 true Wick Lowmen to free their sireland. Gape-toothed Kathleen, her 4 beautiful green fields, the stranger in her house. And one more to hail him, Ave, Rabbi. The Tinhelly 12, and the shadow of the glen, he coos for them. My soul's youth I give him, night by night. Godspeed, good hunting. Mulligan has my telegram. Folly, persist. Our young Irish bards, John Eggleton censored, have yet to create a figure which the world will set beside Saxon Shakespeare's Hamlet, though I admire him, as old Ben did, on his side, idolatry. All these questions are purely academic. Russell oracled out of his shadow. I mean, whether Hamlet is Shakespeare or James I or Essex. Clergymen's discussions of the historicity of Jesus. Art has to reveal to us ideas, formless spiritual essences. The supreme question about a work of art is about how deep a life does it spring. The painting of Gustave Moreau is the painting of ideas. The deepest poetry of Shelley, the words of Hamlet bring our mind into contact with the eternal wisdom, Plato's world of ideas. All the rest is the speculation of schoolboys for schoolboys. A.E. has been telling some Yankee interviewer, "Wall, tarnation, strike me." The schoolmen were schoolboys first. Stephen said super politely, Aristotle was once Plato's schoolboy, and has remained so, one should hope, John Eggleton sedately said. One can see him, a model schoolboy with his diploma under his arm. He laughed again at the now smiling bearded face. Formless spiritual, Father, Word, and Holy Breath. All Father, the heavenly man, Hysos Christos, magician of the beautiful, the Logos who suffers in us at every moment. This verily is that. I am the fire upon the altar. I am the sacrificial butter. Dunlop, Judge, the noblest Robin of them all. A.E., Arvel, the name ineffable, in heaven height. K.H., their master, whose identity is no secret to adepts. Brothers of the Great White Lodge, always watching to see if they can help. The Christ with the bride sister, moisture of light, born of an unsouled virgin. Repentant Sophia, departed to the plane of Budai. The life esoteric is not for ordinary person. O.P. must work off bad karma first. Mrs. Cooper Oakley once glimpsed our very illustrious sister H, P.B.'s elemental. Oh, fie, out, aunt, he footful. You noughtn't to look, missus, so you noughtn't when a lady's a showing her elemental. Mr. Best entered, tall, young, mild, light. He bore in his hand with grace a notebook, new, large, clean, bright. That model schoolboy, Stephen said, would find Hamlet's musings about the afterlife of his princely soul, the improbable, insignificant, and undramatic monologue as shallow as Plato's. John Eggleton, frowning, said, waxing wroth, upon my word, it makes my blood boil to hear anyone compare Aristotle with Plato. Which of the two, Stephen asked, would have banished me from his commonwealth? Unsheath your dagger definitions. Hoarseness is the whatness of all horse. Streams of tendency and eons they worship. God, noise in the street, very peripatetic. Space, what you damn well have to see. Through spaces smaller than red globules of man's blood, they creepy crawl after Blake's buttocks into eternity of which this vegetable world is but a shadow. Hold to the now, the here, through which all future plunges to the past. Mr. Best came forward, amiable, towards his colleague. Haynes is gone, he said. Is he? I was showing him Jubenvilla's book. He's quite enthusiastic, don't you know, about Hyde's love songs of Connacht. I couldn't bring him in to hear the discussion. He's gone to Gill's to buy it. Bound thee forth my booklet, quick, to greet the callous public. Writ, I ween, 'twas not my wish, in lean, unlovely English. The peat smoke is going to his head, John Eggleton opined. We feel in England, penitent thief. Gone, I smoked his baccy, green twinkling stone, an emerald set in the ring of the sea. People do not know how dangerous love songs can be. The auric egg of Russell warned occultly. The movements which were on the hillside. From them, the earth is not an exploitable ground, but the living mother. The rarefied air of the academy and the arena produce the six-shelling novel, the music hall song. France produces the finest flower of corruption in Mallarme, but the desirable life is revealed only to the poor of heart, the life of Homer's Phæacians. From these words, Mr. Best turned an unoffending face to Stephen. Mallarme, don't you know, he said, has written those wonderful prose poems Stephen McKenna used to read to me in Paris. The one about Hamlet. He says, Il se promène, licite au livre de lui-même. Don't you know, reading the book of himself. He describes Hamlet given in a French town, don't you know, a provincial town. They advertised it. His free hand graciously wrote tiny signs in air. Hamlet, oui, le district. Pièce de Shakespeare. He repeated to John Eagleton's new gathered frown. Pièce de Shakespeare. Don't you know, it's so French, the French point of view. Hamlet, oui. The absent-minded beggar, Stephen ended. John Eggleton laughed. Yes, I suppose it would be, he said. Excellent people, no doubt, but distressingly short-sighted in some matters. Sumptuous and stagnant exaggeration of murder. A deathsman of the soul, Robert Greene called him, Stephen said. Not for nothing was he a butcher's son, wielding the sledded poleaxe and spitting in his palm. 9 lives are taking off for his father's one, our Father who art in purgatory. Khaki Hamlets don't hesitate to shoot. The blood-boltered shambles in Act 5 is a forecast of the concentration camp, sung by Mr. Swinburne. Cranley, his mute orderly, following battles from afar. Whelps and dams of murderous foes whom none but we have spared. Between the Saxon smile and Yankee yap, the devil and the deep sea. He will have it that Hamlet is a ghost story, John Eggleton said, for Mr. Best's behoof. Like the fat boy in Pickwick, he wants to make our flesh creep. List, list, oh list. My flesh hears him, creeping, hears, if thou didst ever. What is a ghost? Stephen said with tingling energy. One who has faded into impalpability through death, through absence, through change of manners. Elizabethan London lay as far from Stratford as corrupt Paris lies from virgin Dublin. Who is the ghost from limbo partrum, returning to the world that has forgotten him? Who is King Hamlet? John Eggleton shifted his spare body, leaning back to judge. Lifted. It is this hour of a day in mid-June, Stephen said, begging with a swift glance their hearing. The flag is up on the playhouse by the bankside. The bear sacristan growls in the pit near it. Paris Garden. Canvas climbers who sailed with Drake chew their sausages among the groundlings. Local color, work in all you know, make them accomplices. Shakespeare has left the Huguenot's house in Silver Street and walks by the Saône Mews along the riverbank, but he does not stay to feed the pen, chivying her game of signets towards the rushes. The Swan of Avon has other thoughts. Composition of place. Ignatius Loyola, make haste to help me. The play begins. A player comes on under the shadow, made up in the cast-off mail of a court buck, a well-set man with a bass voice. It is the ghost, the king, a king, and no king. And the player is Shakespeare, who has studied Hamlet all the years of his life, which were not vanity in order to play the part of the spectra. He speaks the words to Burbage, the young player who stands before him, beyond the rack of cerecloth, calling him by a name. Hamlet, I am thy father's spirit. Bidding him list. To his son he speaks, the son of his soul, the prince, young Hamlet, and to the son of his body, Hamnet, Shakespeare, who has died in Stratford, that his namesake may live forever. Is it possible that the player Shakespeare, a ghost by absence, and in the vesture of buried Denmark, a ghost by death, speaking his own words to his own son's name, had Hamnet Shakespeare lived, he would have been Prince Hamlet's twin. Is it possible? I want to know, or probable, that he did not draw or foresee the logical conclusion of those premises? You are the dispossessed son. I am the murdered father. Your mother is the guilty queen, and Shakespeare, born Hathaway. But this prying into the family life of a great man, Russell began impatiently. Art thou there, true Penny? Interesting only to the parish clerk. I mean, we have the plays. I mean, we read the poetry of King Lear. What is it to us how the poet lived? As for living, our servants can do that for us. Villiers de Isle has said, peeping and prying, the poet's debts. We have King Lear, and it is immortal. Mr. Best's face appealed too, agreed. Flow over them with your waves and with your waters, Manahananan, McLear. How now, sirrah, that pound he lent you when you were hungry? Marry, I wanted it. Take thou this noble. Go to, you spent most of it in Georgina Johnson's bed, clergyman's daughter, again bite of inwit. Do you intend to pay it back? Oh, yes. When? Now? Well, no. Well, then, I paid my way. Steady on. He's from beyond Boyne Water, the northeast corner. You owe it. Wait. 5 months. Molecules all change. I am other, I now. Other, I got pound. Buzz. But I, entelechy, form of forms, am I by memory because under ever-changing forms? I that sinned and prayed and fasted. A child come me, saved from pandies. I, and I, A-E-I-O-U. Do you mean to fly in the face of the tradition of 3 centuries? John Eggleton's carping voice asked. Her ghost at least has been laid forever. She died, for literature at least, before she was born. She died, Stephen retorted, 67 years after she was born. She saw him into and out of the world. She took his first embraces. She bore his children, and she laid pennies on his eyes to keep his eyelids closed when he lay on his deathbed. Mother's deathbed. Candle, the sheeted mirror. Who brought me into this world lies here, bronze-lidded, under few cheap flowers. Lalatia rotellum. I wept alone. John Eggleton looked in the tangled glowworm of his lamp. The world believes that Shakespeare made a mistake, he said, and got out of it as quickly and as best he could. Bosh, Stephen said rudely. A man of genius makes no mistakes. His errors are volitional and are the portals of discovery. Portals of discovery opened to let in the Quaker librarian, soft creek-footed, bald-eared, and assiduous. A shrew, John Ingleton said shrewdly, is not a useful portal of discovery, one should imagine. What useful discovery did Socrates learn from Exanthete? Dialectic, Stephen answered, and from his mother how to bring thoughts into the world. What he learnt from his other wife, Myrto, Socratidinians, Epicenian. No man, not a woman, will ever know. But neither the midwife's lore nor the Caldwell lectures saved him from the archons of Sinn and their nagging of hemlock. But Anne Hathaway, Mr. Best's quiet voice said forgetfully. Yes, we seem to be forgetting her as Shakespeare himself forgot her. His look went from Bruder's beard to Carper's skull, to remind, to chide them not unkindly, then to the bald pink Lollard costard, guiltless though maligned. He had a good groat's worth of wit, Stephen said, and no truant memory. He carried a memory in his wallet as he trudged to Romeville, whistling, "The Girl I Left Behind Me." If the earthquake did not time it, we should know where to place poor Watt, sitting in his form, the cry of hounds, the studded bridle in her blue windows. That memory, Venus and Adonis, lay in the bedchamber of every light of love in London. Is Catherine the shrew ill-favored? Hortensio calls her young and beautiful. Do you think the writer of Antony and Cleopatra, a passionate pilgrim, had his eyes in the back of his head that he chose the ugliest doxy in all Warwickshire to lie withal? Good. He left her and gained the world of men. But his boy-women are the women of a boy. Their life, thought, speech are lent them by males. He chose badly? He was chosen, it seems to me. If others have their will, Anne hath a way. By cock she has to blame. She put the comther on him, sweet and 26. The gray-eyed goddess who bends over the boy Adonis, stooping to conquer, as prologued to the swelling act, as a bold-faced Stratford wench who tumbles in a cornfield, a lover younger than herself. And my turn? When? Come. Ryfield, Mr. Best said brightly, gladly, raising his new book, gladly, brightly. He murmured then, with blonde delight for all. Between the acres of the rye, those pretty country folk would lie. Paris, the well-pleased pleaser. A tall figure in bearded homespun rose from shadow and unveiled its cooperative watch. I am afraid I am due at the homestead. Whither away? Exploitable ground. Are you going? John Eggleton's active eyebrows asked. Shall we see you at Moore's tonight? Piper is coming. Piper, Mr. Best piped. Is Piper back? Peter Piper pecked a peck of pickled peppers. I don't know if I can. Thursday, we have our meeting. If I can get away in time. Yogi Boggy Box and Dawson Chambers. Isis unveiled. Their Pally book we tried to pawn. Cross-legged under an umbral undershoot, he thrones an Aztec logos. Functioning on astral levels, their oversoul, Mahatma. The faithful Hermetists await the light, ripe for fellowship, ring round about him. Louis H. Victory, T. Caulfield, Urn. Lotus ladies tend them, the eyes, their pineal glands aglow. Filled with his god he thrones, Buddha under plantain, gulfer of souls, engulfer, he souls, she souls, shoals of souls, engulfed with wailing, cree cries, world, whirling, they bewail. In quintessential triviality, for years in this fleck case, a she-shoal dwelt. They say we are to have a literary surprise, the Quaker librarian said, friendly and earnest. Mr. Russell, rumor has it, is gathering together a sheaf of our younger poets' verses. We are all looking forward anxiously. Anxiously, he glanced in the cone of lamplight where three faces, lighted, shone. See this. Remember. Stephen looked down on a wide, headless carbine hung on his aspen handle over his knee. My casque and sword, touched lightly with two index fingers. Aristotle's experiment. One or two. Necessity is that in virtue of which it is impossible that one can be otherwise. Argal, one hat is one hat. Listen. Young Colum and Starkey. George Roberts is doing the commercial part. Longworth will give it a good puff in the Express. Oh, will he? I liked Colum's Drover. Yes, I think he has that queer thing. Genius. Do you think he has genius, really? Yeats admired his line, as in Wild Earth, a Grecian vase. Did he? I hope you'll be able to come tonight. Malachi Mulligan is coming too. Moore asked him to bring Haynes. Did you hear Miss Mitchell's joke about Moore and Martin? That Moore is Martin's wild oats. Awfully clever, isn't it? They remind me of one of Don Quixote and Sancho Panza. Our national epic has yet to be written, Dr. Segerson says. Moore is the man for it. A knight of the rueful countenance here in Dublin. With a saffron kilt? O'Neill Russell? Oh yes, he must speak the grand old tongue. And his Deluncia? James Stevens is doing some clever sketches. We're becoming important, it seems. Cordelia, Cordelagio, Lear's loneliest daughter. Knockshotten, now your best French polish. Thank you very much, Mr. Russell, Stephen said, rising. If you will be so kind as to give the letter to Mr. Norman. Oh, yes, if he considers it important, it will go in. We have so much correspondence. I understand, Stephen said. Thanks. Gadildia, the pig's paper, Bullock befriending. Singe has promised me an article for Dana, too. Are we going to be read? I feel we are. The Gaelic League wants something in Irish. I hope we will come round tonight. Bring Starkey. Stephen sat down. The Quaker librarian came from the leave takers. Blushing his mask, said, Mr. Dedalus, your views are most illuminating. He creaked to and fro, tiptoeing up nearer heaven by the altitude of a chopine, and covered by the noise of outgoing, said low, Is it your view, then, that she was not faithful to the poet? Alarmed face asks me, why did he come? Curtsy or an inward light? Where there is reconciliation, Stephen said, there must have been first a sundering. Yes. Christ fox in leather trews hiding, a runaway in blighted tree forks from hue and cry, knowing no vixen, walking lonely in the chase. Woman he won to him, tender people, a whore of Babylon, ladies of justices, bully tapsters' wives, fox and geese, and in new place a slack, dishonored body that once was comely, once as sweet, as fresh as cinnamon, now her leaves falling, all bare, affrighted of the narrow grave and unforgiving. Yes, so you think so? The door closed behind the outgoer. Rest suddenly possessed the discreet vaulted cell, rest of warm and brooding air. A vestal's lamp. Here he ponders things that were not, what Caesar would have lived to do had he believed the soothsayer, what might have been, possibilities of the possible as possible, things not known, what name Achilles bore when he lived among women. Coffined thoughts around me in mummy cases, embalmed in spice of words. Thoth, god of libraries, a bird god, moony crowned, and I heard the voice of that Egyptian high priest in painted chambers loaded with tile books. They are still, once quick in the brains of men, still, but an itch of death is in them to tell me in my ear a maudlin tale, urge me to wreak their will. Certainly, John Eggleton mused, of all great men, he is the most enigmatic. We know nothing but that he lived and suffered. Not even so much, others abide our question. A shadow hangs over all the rest. But Hamlet is so personal, isn't it? Mr. Best pleaded. I mean, a kind of private paper, don't you know, of his private life. I mean, I don't care a button, don't you know, who was killed or who is guilty. He rested an innocent book on the edge of the desk, smiling his defiance. His private papers in the original. Ta am bad ar antir, time imo shagart, por Bueller on it, Little John. Quoth Little John Eggleton. I was prepared for paradoxes from what Malachi Mulligan told us, but I may as well warn you that if you want to shake my belief that Shakespeare is Hamlet, you have a stern task before you. Bear with me. Stephen withstood the bane of miscreant eyes, glinting stern under wrinkled brows. A basilisk. E quando vede l'uomo la tasca. Messer Bernuto, I thank thee for the word. As we, our mother Dana, weave and unweave our bodies, Stephen said, from day to day, their molecules shuttled to and fro, so does the artist weave and unweave his image. And as the mole on my right breast is where it was when I was born, through all my body has been woven of new stuff time after time. So through the ghost of the unquiet father, the image of the unliving son looks forth. In the intense instant of imagination, when the mind, Shelley says, is a fading coal, that which I was, that which I am, and that which in possibility I may come to be. So in the future, the sister of the past, I may see myself as I sit here now, but my reflection from that which then I shall be. Drummond of Hawthornden helped you at that style. Yes, Mr. Best said youngly. I feel Hamlet quite young. The bitterness might be from the father, but the passages from Ophelia are surely from the son. He has the wrong so by the lug. He is in my father. I am in his son. That mole is the last to go, Stephen said, laughing. John Eggleton made a nothing pleasing mow. If that were the birthmark of genius, he said, genius would be a drug in the market. The plays of Shakespeare's later years, which Renan admired so much, breathe another spirit. The spirit of reconciliation, the Quaker librarian breathed. There can be no reconciliation, Stephen said, if there has not been a sundering. Said that. If you want to know what are the events which cast their shadow over the hell of time, of King Lear, Othello, Hamlet, Troilus, and Cressida, look to see when and how the shadow lifts, what softens the heart of a man, shipwrecked in storms dire, tired like another Ulysses, Pericles, Prince of Tyre. Head, red cone-capped, buffeted, brine-blinded. A child, a girl, placed in his arms, Marina. The leaning of sophists toward the bypaths of Acriphia is a constant quantity, John Eggleton detected. The high roads are dreary, but they lead to the town. Good bacon, gone musty. Shakespeare's Bacon's wild oats. Cipher jugglers going the high roads, seekers on the great quest. What town, good masters, mummed in names, A.E., Ian, Maggie, John Eggleton, east of the sun, west of the moon, Ternanug, quoted the twain and staved. How many miles to Dublin? 70, sir. Will we be there by candlelight? Mr. Brands accepts it, Stephen said, as the first play of the closing period. Does he? What does Mr. Sidney Lee or Mr. Simon Lazarus, as some aver his name is, say of it? Marina, Stephen said, a child of storm. Miranda, a wonder. Perdita, that which was lost. What was lost is given back to him, his daughter's child. My dearest wife, Pericles says, was like this maid. Will any man love the daughter if he has not loved the mother? The art of being a grandfather, Mr. Best, gone murmur, l'art d'être grand. His own image to a man with that queer thing genius is the standard of all experience, material and moral. Such an appeal will touch him. The images of other males of his blood will repel him. He will see in them grotesque attempts of nature to foretell or repeat himself. The benign forehead of the Quaker librarian enkindled rosily with hope. I hope Mr. Dedalus will work out his theory for the enlightenment of the public. And we ought to mention another Irish commentator, Mr. George Bernard Shaw, nor should we forget Mr. Frank Harris. His articles on Shakespeare in the Saturday Review were surely brilliant. Oddly enough, he too draws for us an unhappy relation with the dark lady of the sonnets. The favored rival is William Herbert, Earl of Pembroke. I own that if the poet must be rejected, such a rejection would seem more in harmony with, what shall I say, our notions of what ought not to have been. Felicitously he ceased, and held a meek head among them, ox egg, prize of their fray. He thous and these her with grave husband works. Dost love, Miriam, dost love thy man? That may be too, Stephen said. There's a saying of Goetz, which Mr. McGee likes to quote. Beware of what you wish for in youth, because you will get it in middle life. Why does he send to one who is Bunraba, a bay where all men ride, a maid of honor with a scandalous girlhood, a lording to woo for him? He was himself a lord of language, and he had made himself a cloistral gentleman and had written Romeo and Juliet. Why? Belief in himself has been untimely killed. He was overborn in a cornfield first, rye field, I should say, and he will never be a victor in his own eyes after, nor play victoriously the game of laugh and lie down. Assumed Don Giovanniism will not save him. No later undoing will undo the first undoing. The tusk of the boar has wounded him there where love lies a-bleeding. If the shrew is worsted, yet there remains to her woman's invisible weapon. There is, I feel in the words, some goad of the flesh driving him into a new passion, a darker shadow of the first, darkening even his own understanding of himself. A like fate awaits him, and the two pages commingle in a whirlpool. They list, and in the porches of their ears I pour. The soul has been before stricken mortally, a poison poured in the porch of a sleeping ear. But those who are done to death in sleep cannot know the manner of their quell unless their Creator endow their souls with that knowledge in the life to come. The poisoning and the beast, with two backs that urged it, King Hamlet's ghost, could not know of where he not endowed with knowledge by his Creator. That is why the speech, his lean, unlovely English, is always turned elsewhere, backward, ravisher, and ravished, what he would but would not, go with from Lucrece's blue-circled ivory globes to Imogene's breast, bare with its mole cincus-spotted. He goes back, weary of the creation he has plied up to hide him from himself, an old dog licking an old sore. But because loss is his gain, he passes on towards eternity in undiminished personality, untaught by the wisdom he has written or by the laws he has revealed. His beaver is up. He is a ghost, a shadow now, the wind by Elsinore's rocks, or what you will, the sea's voice, a voice heard only in the heart of him who is the substance of his shadow, the Son consubstantial of the Father. Amen, responded from the doorway. Hast thou found me, O mine enemy? Entre acte. A ribald face, sullen as a dean's, Buck Mulligan came forward, then blithe and motley towards the greeting of their smiles. My telegram. You were speaking of the gaseous vertebrate, if I mistake not, he asked of Stephen. Primrose vested, he greeted gaily with his doffed Panama as with a bauble. They make him welcome. Was der Wurlichwurst Nachteninen. Brood of mockers. Phidias, Pseudo-Malachi, Johann Most. He who himself begat, Middler, the Holy Ghost, and himself sent himself, Agenbuyer, between himself and others, who put upon his friends, stripped and whipped, was nailed like bat to barn door, starved on cross tree, who let him bury, stood up, harrowed hell, fared into heaven, and these 1900 years sitteth on the right hand of his own self, but yet shall come in the later day to doom the quick and dead, when all the quick shall be dead already. He lifts his hands, bells fall. O flowers, bells with bells acquiring. Yes, indeed, the Quaker librarian said. A most instructive discussion, Mr. Mulligan. I'll be bound, has his theory too of the play and of Shakespeare. All sides of life should be represented. He smiled on all sides equally. Buck Mulligan thought, puzzled. Shakespeare, he said. I seem to know the name. A flying sunny smile rayed in his loose features. To be sure, he said, remembering brightly, the chap that writes like Synge. Mr. Best turned to him. Haynes missed you, he said. Did you meet him? He'll see you after at the DBC. He's gone to Gill's to buy Hyde's Love Songs of Connacht. I came through the museum, Buck Mulligan said. Was he here? The bard's fellow countryman, John Eggleton, answered, or rather tried, perhaps, of our brilliancies of theorizing. I hear that an actress played Hamlet for the 408th time last night in Dublin. Vining held that the prince was a woman. Has no one made him out to be an Irishman? Judge Barton, I believe, is searching for some clues. He swears, His Highness, not his lordship, by St. Patrick. The most brilliant of all that story of Wilde's, Mr. Best said, lifting his brilliant notebook. That portrait of Mr. W.H., where he proves that the sonnets were written by Willie Hughes, a man all hues. For Willie Hughes, is it not? The Quaker librarian asked. Or Huey Wills, Mr. William himself, W.H., who am I? I mean for Willie Hughes, Mr. Best said, amending his gloss easily. Of course, it's all paradox, don't you know? Hues and hues and hues the color. But it's so typical the way he works it out. It's the very essence of Wilde, don't you know? The light touch. His glance touched their faces lightly as he smiled. A blonde effete, tame essence of Wilde. You're darned witty. 3 dams of uspa you drank with Dean Deasy's ducats. How much should I spend? Oh, a few shillings. For a plump of pressman, humor, wet and dry. Wit. You would give your 5 wits for use proud livery he pranks in, lineaments of gratified desire. There may be many mo. Take her for me, in pairing time. Jove, a cool rut time send them. Ye turtle dove, her. Eve, naked, wheat-bellied sin. A snake coils her. Fangs, ins, kiss. Do you think it is only a paradox? The Quaker librarian was asking. The mocker is never taken seriously when he is most serious. They talked seriously of mockers' seriousness. Buck Mulligan's, again heavy face, eyed Stephen a while. Then, his head wagging, he came near, drew a folded telegram from his pocket. His mobile lips read, smiling with new delight. That was a piece of Ulysses by James Joyce. My father says Bloomsday is fun. It is. You kind of get into that. It's hard. Sometimes it's hard reading. Sometimes it's hard following. Sometimes it's hard listening, but we still keep at it. So that is my Frankenstein tea for the day. I read for quite a bit there. I hope you enjoyed it. Please watch the Dad and everybody else, please go watch the other Bloomsday videos that we've posted. They're great. It's great. We have all kinds of people reading. So enjoy. Happy Bloomsday, everybody.